A person's kindness has the power to transform lives, sometimes in profound ways. We all have learned to be kind to others because it's an essential part of what makes us human. But what happens when this inherent goodness meets the darkest side of human nature? Because sadly, it is true that in some cases, our helping hand can be extended to someone whose intentions are not just ungrateful, but sinister and harmful. We should all be careful who we trust, and the cost of this lesson was the two innocent lives of Gwynn and Boyboy Maguad. For their grieving parents, their kindness became their weakness. And this is the tragic story of the Maguad siblings' murder in the Philippines. At exactly 2:58 p.m. on December 10, 2021, Cruz Maguad, a teacher at Mariano Untal Memorial High School, received a phone call informing him that robbers had ransacked his house. He rushed home knowing that only his 3 children were in their house in Mlang, North Cotabato, a province in the south of the Philippines. Around 3:15 p.m., he arrived at their house, where he found a bloody blanket and a knife in front of the locked door. He shouted for his son, but he received no answer. Fearing for the worst, he went to the back of the house and he called out his children, Gwynn and Boyboy, at the back door. When there was still no answer, he called for his newly adopted daughter, Janice, who had been staying with him since July. He managed to enter the house, and from the kitchen, Cruz headed to the living room. And there he saw, to his horror, the bodies of his 2 children, bathed in their own blood. He fell down on his knees when he saw the bruises, strangulation marks, and stab wounds all over their bodies. But that wasn't the only horrifying sight. Ants were eating his eldest, Gwynn's remains, by that point, and his youngest, Boyboy, was tied up, gagged, and soaked in blood because of the numerous stab wounds littering his body. His blood appeared fresh, at least compared to Gwynn's dried, bloody mess. To him, it seemed that Gwynn died first and the boy died later from blood loss. So he must have watched his sister being stabbed and bludgeoned to death. Beside the siblings were broken bottles, a hammer, and a baseball bat. And it was at that point that Janice, his adopted daughter, who didn't respond to Cruz shouting from the outside of the house, came out from her room with wet hair, looking like she just took a shower. She had a fearful expression on her face, but Cruz, who was still in a state of shock, was dumbfounded as to why she hadn't heard him frantically calling and shouting for them. And her taking a shower in the middle of this chaos was incomprehensible. According to the initial report given by the lone survivor, Gwynn and Janice were in the middle of doing their schoolwork when they heard Boyboy screaming in the living room. They rushed out of the room and saw him being stabbed by 3 unknown men while Boyboy pleaded for mercy. And Gwynn was then attacked next. Meanwhile, Janice managed to lock herself in a room in the middle of all this chaos. She said she didn't know what to do, so she just took a shower. The police were looking at the possibility of robbery as a motive since the cabinets were all opened and personal belongings were found scattered throughout the house. The suspects used a baseball bat, a hammer, and a chopping knife to mutilate the victims. And these were all properties of the Maguad, and only family members, including Janice, knew where these items were. A scene of the crime operative investigator revealed that Gwynn's fists showed she fought hard and tried to defend herself, but she was hammered, hit with a baseball bat, and hacked with a chopping knife on her neck and different parts of her body. The killers were angry, as shown by the way the siblings were tortured before being killed. It took the embalmer 2 days to complete this job because of the mess that has been inflicted on their bodies. The police sensed something was off and thought there was more to the story, so they deployed a special investigation unit to oversee the case. And meanwhile, on social media, netizens poured their hearts out to the parents of the slain victims. Among netizens, there were speculations about the Maguad siblings' murder because, first of all, it was strange that a robbery and murder took place in broad daylight. People could have heard them screaming. Also, the weapons were still there, and there was no signs of forced entry. To them, it looked like an organized murder by someone the family knew very well. More importantly, Janice exhibited odd behavior and consistently made dubious remarks. At first, the netizens felt bad for the survivor, but after hearing the details of the crime, more and more people were starting to see her in a new light. She drew the attention of the internet community, and they learned a lot about her, which helped the investigation. The Maguads were a close-knit, loving family. Lovelia, Cruz's wife, and the mother of the slain siblings, was a principal at a local elementary school. With the salaries of local teachers, the family wasn't exactly wealthy, but they lived comfortably. Gwynn was 18 years old at the time of the incident and was attending a nursing school. She had dreams of becoming a doctor. Boyboy, who was 16 years old, wanted to be a lawyer. They were honor students. Family and friends described them as warm, loving, and God-fearing children. They were kind-hearted kids, so kind that when Gwen met a girl named Janice at a party who worked as a helper for one of her family's friends, it was just second nature for her to befriend this girl. They became close, appearing in many social media videos and enjoying their time together. In April of that year, Janice was introduced to the entire family. At 16, she was hardworking and carried a sad backstory. An orphan with no memories from before the age of 8, and she had moved between various orphanages. When she met the Maguads, she was employed as a servant, caring for 2 children, cooking and cleaning for the family she worked for. School wasn't an option for her because of her tight schedule. Despite her round-the-clock work, she struggled financially. Janice's situation deeply moved the siblings. Gwynn, touched and seeing her friend in dire need, persuaded her parents to adopt Janice. She hoped this would offer Janice a chance to attend school and improve her life. Her parents were initially hesitant because of their financial situation and the lack of space in their home, but the parents were eventually swayed. Boyboy generously offered his room to Janice, choosing to sleep in the living room to make her feel more comfortable. After constant persuasion from Gwynn and Boyboy, their parents agreed and decided to support Gwynn's wish. By July 2021, Janice was officially part of the family. In just 5 months, Janice endeared herself to everyone in the family. Lovelia and Cruz came to love her as their own child, while Gwynn and Boyboy saw her as a sister, treating her as if she were a blood relative. Gwen went out of her way to provide for Janice, even without their parents knowing, because she saw her as a sister. She even tutored her and helped Janice with her schoolwork. The family's unconditional love and support were showered on Janice. They recognized her difficult past and extended every possible consideration. They even forgave her when she stole from them, understanding her challenges. In August, the family lost 10,000 pesos placed in a jar in their parents' room near the window. When the household panicked, Janice played dumb and said the money could have been stolen by a stranger through the window pane. But after a day, Gwynn discovered that Janice had hidden the money inside a secret compartment in her bag that she had sewn herself. She again played innocent, saying that because of her upbringing, she wanted to keep any money and food any way she could, and was going to buy a phone and use the rest for an online selling business. Stealing was not tolerated in the household, but the Maguad family just let it slide. They wanted to give her a second chance. Everything was going well. The family even went on trips with her. They were slowly integrating Janice into every aspect of their lives. And on the morning of December 10th, 5 months after adopting her, Lovelia and Cruz were so happy when Janice called them Mom and Dad for the first time, only to find out later that they had adopted a killer who would slaughter their 2 children. When the case went viral on social media, the online community was quick to speculate and shared several pieces of information about Janice based on their research. Through social media posts, they discovered that Janice was reported missing in 2013. There was a post claiming to have seen Janice alone and on a ship on September 22nd, 2013. It's unclear whether Janice was abandoned by her parents or if she was truly lost. There are speculations that she may have been in contact with her real parents ever since. But the most suspicious posts were those of Janice herself. Many internet users questioned whether Janice was truly innocent because she managed not only to take a shower, but also to update her social media, according to the timestamps of the post, while her siblings were being murdered. During the incident, she posted cries for help on Facebook. She said, "Guys, please help me. Our house has been invaded. I don't want to die yet. I'm hiding in the room." But why did she have time to post when she could have just called the cops? It was becoming apparent how detached and bizarre Janice was regarding the murder of her siblings. Her behavior was contrary to that of a survivor of such a horrific event. And because of this, netizens compared the incident to the real-life movie Orphan, which happens to be Janice's favorite film. And Cruz later recalled that she frequently asked them to watch the movie, but he didn't because he didn't like the story, which is creepy. The authorities were also growing suspicious of Janice because of her inconsistent statements. Initially, she said that Boyboy was the first to be murdered, but the first body she saw was Gwyn's. This was contradictory to Cruz's observation of the state of his children's bodies when he first encountered the crime scene. To him, it seemed like the girl died first and the boy was still alive when she was being attacked. Cruz also stated that the hammer used was his, and that he had hidden it in the laundry area where only 2 people knew of its location, his daughter and the orphan. And the bat was placed inside his son's room, which was now Janice's room. The results of the investigation and evidence pointed to Janice. The laboratory cross-matched the blood, hair strands, and deadly weapons used at the scene, and found Janice's fingerprints. Janice soon confessed and pointed to a male accomplice who helped her commit this heinous crime. The authorities accessed her social media and found that Janice had been in contact via Facebook Messenger with a friend, a 17-year-old altar boy she met at church, discussing the crime days before the incident. She convinced him to kill her siblings and promised him money. She was envious, jealous, and she hated Gwynn, and even considered her a rival because of the love the family showered Gwynn. She wanted what Gwynn had, not knowing that it was already offered up to her. She wanted all the attention and love to be solely hers. Her confession showed how merciless they were. The plan was simple. Janice would distract Gwynn in the bedroom while the altar boy went after Boyboy. He was sleeping in the living room when he was attacked, and the altar boy started stabbing his neck. He shouted for help and pleaded for mercy. Gwynn was startled by the noise and she tried to rush out of the room, but Janice stopped her. While Janice pretended she had no idea what was going on, screaming at Gwynn not to go out because she could be hurt too. Gwynn forced her way out and ran outside through the kitchen. When she noticed Janice was not following, she said to Janice, "Let's go, let's run, let's get help," not knowing that Janice was orchestrating everything. Janice acted as if she were shaken, hurt, and couldn't move. Gwynn tried to pull her outside to safety so hard. Gwynn would have escaped if only she hadn't gone back for Janice. She went back to help and protect Janice, and that's when the altar boy seized her in the laundry area and continues to stab her. This time, with the help of Janice, they dragged her inside and choked her. When that wasn't enough to finish her off, they bludgeoned the back of her head with a baseball bat. But Gwynn was still clinging onto her life, so they used the hammer on her, large bottles of soda, and even a flower vase. They stabbed Gwynn 3 times in the neck and washed their hands while she moaned in pain. They went back to it, trying to chop her neck off and washing their hands after every attempt. After all the struggle for her life, Gwynn was dead. Janice confessed that Gwyn's last words before she died was, "This is just a dream. This is just a dream. I'm still going to become a doctor. I don't know what wrong I did to you, Janice. I love you very much." It was reported that Gwynn suffered 21 stab wounds. They almost cut off Gwyn's entire neck, and she lost her entire ear. Janice's hatred was evident. 6 days after the murder, the case was filed. The Department of Social Welfare and Development released a statement condemning the public distribution of Janice's photo. Because she was 16 at the time of the killings, Janice fell under the juvenile law, which states that a child above 15 years old, but below 18 years of age, shall be exempt from criminal liability and be subject only to an intervention program. Netizens were outraged, arguing that minors 17 years and above are already sound of mind and should be punished according to their crimes. Cruz and Lovelia cried out for justice, but the suspects, being minors, couldn't be charged in court and could not be considered criminals. Instead, they were referred to as children in conflict with the law and must be protected despite their admission to the crime. They remained under the custody of the Department of Social Welfare and Development until they reached the age of 18. And in May 2022, the court sentenced the two defendants to 17 years for each murder charge, totaling 34 years without parole for each of the two criminals. Lovelia was devastated. She believed their children's deaths were because of her letting the orphan girl into their home. And on top of this pain, she and her husband had hoped for maximum justice. But because of the juvenile law, no heavier sentence could be imposed. The Maguads are pushing for amendments to the juvenile law. In an interview, Lovelia questioned whether individuals like Janice, who meticulously planned and relentlessly executed a murder, and then dramatized the entire event, should be considered children in the eyes of the law. She argued that such heinous acts could only be committed by a mind devoid of a child's innocence. Yet, the Maguads have never seen any signs of remorse from Janice. She never asked for forgiveness for the crime she confessed to, keeping her head held high and even daring to glare at them across the courtroom. After the sentencing, Janice turned to them, laughed, and stared at them. To me, it seems like she's displaying some serious psychopathic tendencies, someone devoid of empathy, unable to understand the depth of the pain and suffering she had caused. The Maguads were still willing to find it in their hearts to forgive the criminals, if only they had asked for it. They wanted to forgive Janice because, after all, they had once loved her as a family. But she continued to refuse to acknowledge the wrong in murdering her siblings. These cases leave a bitter taste on so many levels. The way the kind-hearted are betrayed for their kindness, while the evil seem to continue on as if their actions were merely an episode in their lives, excusing it by claiming they were too young back then. It's just deeply unsettling. And the thought of Janice potentially being out of jail in 34 years, still not very old, makes many of us feel uncomfortable. It is tough to decide if someone like her deserves another chance. On one hand, young people can change, but on the other, we can never be sure if they will. And we must keep everyone safe from evil. So, what are your thoughts? I'll leave you with that, and thank you for watching. See you soon.